Take two.
So that's going, isn't it?
Pick up from the top. So, my name's Joe. My name's Alan, obviously. I've always loved football, and I played at a reasonable standard, as Andy knows. But injuries led to me having to give up when I was 23, which is quite an early time to stop playing the game you love. But it allowed me to find my pathway into coaching, which I've absolutely loved. I'm currently a level 2 coach with Youth Module 1. I accidentally, I thought I had Youth Module 2, but I don't, so I overrated that. But one of the, and I meant to change it before, but I didn't. But one of the main decisions for me really is about being a coach or a manager. I love coaching, I love interacting with footballers, but I'm not great at engaging with managers. So every club that I tried to coach at, I always found myself wanting to be number one, wanting to be the decision maker, wanting to be the one that that decision rested on. So once I worked out how much effort that was after doing it for 3 years, again I just pulled out of football a little bit because I needed a break, because it's tough being a manager. This season, however, I'm good friends with Callum Brooks, and I found out that he was going on to manage Hamworthy out there, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity for me to get back involved in football, working for someone as credible as Callum. I actually came in as number 3, so my job initially was to work with the development team and create a pathway up to the first team, but within 2 weeks Luke Middlewick, who was the head coach, had got a job at Yeovil, and suddenly I then became assistant manager with Callum and responsible for the majority of the coaching. That was quite a shock for me because I had quite a lot on with getting back into a club at this level, coming in as a coach when I hadn't coached for a couple of years, and crazily trying to apply to do my UEFA B at the same time. So I've had a really interesting year that's kind of gone like that, and then round on a loop and then back again, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world. Who am I? I thought I would share my philosophy from before our pre-course work, because whilst there's some stuff in there that's not totally relevant, it does give you a good insight into how I want to play, and it will give you a good laugh. Brilliant.
Hello. So
Hamworthy United, and the manager of Course Juniors under 10s. For my course, I'll be focusing on Hamworthy, but I hope to take lots of the principles and knowledge of what I learn over the next year back to my junior side. Having managed in the Dorset Premier League, Wessex Premier League and the Dorset representative side, I've previously had a think about my philosophy. And whilst I know it is quite raw, I like to think the core foundations of how I like to play and watch football is covered, at least at a high level. I break my philosophy down into one word, which I hope makes it easier for players that I work with to digest and understand it. The word I use for my philosophy is play, P-L-A-Y, which can be described as deep, passing move. I like my teams to play passing football, and that requires not only accurate passing, but for players around and beyond the ball to be getting into good space. L, look up. Try and help my players be confident on the ball so that they can play looking up and identify what options that they have so they can make better decisions than if they have their heads down. A is attack. I like my teams to be aggressive with and without the ball, in a good shape to compete for first balls, and alert and aware for second balls. Then looking to get forward quickly and fluidly. And then finally, Y is yell. Talking on a football pitch is so important for so many different reasons. From communicating where you want the ball, organising each other on the pitch, and helping the team stay positive, and by motivating and encouraging your teammates. This philosophy permeates through every session and game that I'm involved in, but I appreciate this is quite broad in the sense of developing specific playing style. I'm hoping that this course will help develop my philosophy, help make it specific to certain players and their needs, and help to integrate my philosophy into a specific way of playing. Thank you.
So there's two reasons why I want to share that with you. One, like, that is my fundamental philosophy. I do like my players to play, and the PLAY does permeate through everything that I do and all the conversations that I have. But fundamentally, you can see how raw and how broad it was. And the second reason I wanted to bring it up, because whilst that philosophy remains, I've learned an awful lot across the UEFA B in terms of how can I actually bring that philosophy to life with a bit more detail. So the types of things that I learned to help me develop that was specifically understanding units and how to link. I'm very, and I still do it to be fair, but I'm very conscious of the individual, a bit like Jason, the way I'll go in and I'll speak to Dennis, but I wouldn't have recognised what's going on across there or in other units. So I've learned an awful lot about that. I was also a big Googler, so I'd be like, right, I've got a session, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? Google, there it is, perfect, to go and deliver it, no one knows any the wiser. But actually the UEFA B has taught me to plan specific sessions based on what is coming up for Hamworthy and the lessons we learned from Callum and at Hamworthy as well, to be fair. Focus during games, Martin's seen this, so we may debate that with me at the end, but focus during games to understand what's happening and what needs to change. I would say that I'm quite good at that on the whole. And the big one, I think, for me was adapting styles. I talked to you about having 3 years off and then coming back into a coaching environment. I'm quite a confident coach and quite a loud coach, and I can be quite directive. And then I walked into people like Nathan Walker and Dan Can and people like that, where if you go and try and deliver coaching sessions like that without the right level of detail, without the right level of knowledge, you get sent straight back out the square. So you have to adapt your styles, if you like. So almost got into debates at times, Q&As at times, and some guidance stuff, and certainly a lot less directive, which I think was good for me.
Am I coordinating for next year back to my junior side?
Apologies.
Having managed in Dorset,
Thank you. So I had to think about the values as a coach and how I like to be portrayed and how I like to coach, essentially. So I like to be punctual. I'm always the first to arrive, the last to leave. I'm always prepared. I like to have my plans, my session plans done in my mind with my coaching points at least 24 hours before I turn up. I'm concise, and I've learned that quite a lot. I used to be quite broad, but this season I've had to be really concise and relevant and adapt my styles at times. And obviously I like to look smart, and I demand high standards from my players when we're out on the pitch. How we play, so at this level, availability can sometimes be an issue, so we have to base it on players available, but also at times this season we've looked at the opponents that are coming up and the types of formation and stuff they play. But fundamentally I like to play 4-4-2 in a diamond or 4-2-3-1, is because I like two strikers and I like my numbers in midfield. But you do come up against 3-5-2s in the Wessex League, and you also come up against 4-2-3-1s where you can match it. So I'll have a think about that prior to the training session on the Thursday, and then that will feed into the game plan for the Saturday. Effective set pieces are really important to me. Energy, aggression and organisation, quality delivery, movement and energy, pre-planned routines, and really trying to retain possession of the throw. It sounds quite simple, but it's quite a hard thing to do, even for adult players now. You can quite easily get sucked into just putting it down the line because there's no lateral movement inside. So we want to work on retaining possessions. So you can see I'll always stick to my philosophy of playing football, try to play it with two strikers and an overload in midfield. But the game plan and the formation might change, but the philosophy to play through midfield will always remain the same. I've split this up into two, so team roles and individual. How we play, because I like to keep the ball and play out from the back, I also like to play forward quite quickly when it's right. So a lot of conversation with the players about when to do that and then when to retain possession, how to retain possession. Focused, aware and moving, that's really important to me, as you heard in my philosophy. I think if you play passing football and you just stand there watching, then it will break down very quickly. Communication is massive for me, and a message that we generally talk to them every single game as we play through and into forwards. We try and break on different lines with a high tempo and intelligent movement. Easy to say, hard to coach, but it is, again, it's the philosophy. So it's that challenge and that learning and that pathway to getting the players to understand that and play like that. I've done roles for each one. I won't go through everyone because I'd like you all to be awake at the end, but essentially I just take the 7 and 8, which will be 7 and 11 in a minute. So in a diamond, I like them to flatten out ball side into the half space. So if you imagine us in the diamond, I'll show you in a minute, but you've got your 4 in the diamond. When we're in possession, ball side, so either the 3 or the 4's got it, the 8 will just flatten off into the half space to allow space for the fullback to overlap, but look to play forward into 10 and 9. And then the other side will narrow off. And the big difference to that is our 7 and 11, so obviously they play higher level with the 9, but we will change the game plan based on whether it's a 3-5-2 or matched up in a 4-2-3-1. So we might have them on the outside of the fullback looking to play around, or we might have them inside nice and narrow looking to play off a target man number 9. Out of possession, I like my teams to work hard. I like them to force opponents to play quickly or get back into formation. I think one of the challenges this year, certainly since I took over from Callum, was the distances between units, so that's a big one that we have to work on, because I think getting your engagement line, getting your team back in nice and narrow is fine, but you've also got to work on the distances between those units, and I think that's something I can improve. Focused and tracking runners, aggressive, communicate again and again. Pictures that go, or the message that generally goes in is we don't dive in, particularly in a diamond. As the ball goes out wide, that's where our vulnerability is, so we don't dive in, we try and delay, wait for the cavalry to come, or try and force them sideways or backwards. Again, rolls out of possession. I won't go through them all, but that will permeate through every game plan that we put together if we're playing in a diamond. Same for a 4-2-3-1. And you can see the 2 different types of formation that I'll utilise. Again, this one's perfect for my philosophy. Lots of numbers in the middle of the pitch to try and win the ball back, keep the ball, and good numbers up front. What I'll tend to do is I'll have the 9, bit of pace, high up on the shoulder, and I'll have the 11 checking out to try and get on different lines with the 10 and play through. This is an example of a game plan, so I'll generally put some stuff down for me. So this will be my sort of first page. This goes back to Tadley. I think this was probably the 2nd or 3rd game when I took over. We used to do a power play, which meant we just used to have to ball it forward and look for territory for the first 10 minutes. And one of the first things I had to do was take it away, which is a big transition from the side. And when I took over, training was quite difficult, so we were playing so many games, so a lot of the information I had to put across came through game plans. This one I would start to present to the players individually, and then I'll put it back and do it as units. So we'd look at possession, pictures out of possession. So where would I like us to be once the goalkeeper's got it? Where would I like us to be when the number of our left back is one-on-one with the 7? So you can see the reason for the delay, don't dive in, give a chance for the 4 and the 8 to get across and support. Same for in possession, so what happens in this instance when our 4 had it, also what happens when our 7 had it. So that was a big transition for them, trying to talk to them about flattening out. So they're in tight looking to receive the ball, we've got the ball. One of the big temptations was to get out. We didn't want that, I wanted that space left for the 3 to go and overload. So we just flatten out a little bit into the half space. He's now got options. It doesn't look like it, it's a picture, but he can play 9, he can play 10, or you can play 11. So you see we'll talk about getting on different lines. This one, just very quickly, fly through again, that was just for me, but I was changing it to a 4-2-3-1. So I wanted to explain to the boys why we were doing it. We were playing diamond for a couple of games, and was struggling to get support out to the full-back, so 4-2-3-1 was killing us. So I changed it for a 4-2-3-1 and give them some context. So rather than just go through the in-position pictures, I gave them some heat maps. So I went through roles and just gave them some objectives, if you like, about what I wanted them to do within those heat maps. So obviously keeper's heat map was his area. Full-backs, licence to move forward, staying wide, opposite side full-back narrowing off. Centre-backs, defence and cover, nice and tight. Heat maps for defensive midfield. The trick here was don't get too low, don't get too high. Just be the screen to dominate first and second balls. Forward three and striker. So this was literally put into our game folder. I would go through a few individuals before because it's obviously quite a lot of information to take on board, and then I would present some of the key messages to the group. And again, there's our. Well, this was specific because we had pace up front. He's not a dragon, he is blue stone striker. And again, similar to what I was talking about earlier on, I don't dive in, delay, work for wide or through and behind for Stoner. Because what we had with Stoner was ball side. If we were clearing it, we were looking to get him on the half turn, on the shoulder of the back four to go through. Or if we were playing possession, could he have his back to goal just to be a bit of an option. So I spoke to the boys about what they thought about the game plans, done a survey monkey, it was confidential, nobody thought they were terrible. It's not really picking up the full screen, but one person said that they're okay but there's not enough information, and the majority of them said they're really good, they like the pictures, but some of the verbatim comments that come back, it's a good way of football, everything's angled towards the aim goal, in-depth analysis of what we're expected, all information on the board, it gives everyone responsibility. So quite an effective way of getting that information across, but it obviously wasn't perfect. More visuals, less writing, which I took on board, and you'll see that in my planning later on. Plan B, which was interesting, so we started with the diamond, we moved to the 4-2-3-1, but they clearly didn't see that as a plan B, so more work to do there. This was the most interesting one, it's about the build-up in the week, so linking games to training sessions. We used to do that a lot with Callum, and to be fair, we did it with us as well, but with 12 games to go, it was just simply a case of just getting them through, really. So, how do I coach? I love the game of football, as you know. I like to watch good players working hard. Before I started, Google was always my primary resource, but working with you guys and working with Martin and Michelle, you can see that I've learned a bit more about planning, area size, players available, upcoming opponents. I've adapted my styles, gone from directive to a bit more guided and some Q&A. Not particularly by choice, but it was a good learning curve. And looking beyond the ball and understanding the need to link everything together, very individual before. Similarly, which is quite weird for an ex-centre-back, I really enjoy coaching the attacking principles. I've had to work really hard this year on delivering defensive sessions, and you'll see later on, but that was a challenge, I think, because of the personnel that were in that back four, but I got good satisfaction when I'd actually delivered something, it worked, and they looked at me like I actually might know what I'm talking about. So, coaching philosophy, I like players to be technically competent, so we include a lot of passing exercise in our sessions. We like to play out from the back, so we'll have lots of possession drills, everything will be on the floor, even in different sizes and dimensions, interestingly. In the 3v3v3 free zone, it was interesting how Michelle talked about the ability to clip it because the defender's not tight enough. You do that in our level sometimes, and you can't kick it over my head, I can't get it. But actually twisting it around and saying, well, if you press more effectively, that wouldn't be a problem. I can become frustrated, I don't know if that's shown. And I've had to work really hard to control those emotions, because as an assessing coach, it's really important to understand what's happening, not get caught up in the moment, which is easy. And I have no problems with difficult conversations. Fitness is really important to me, and I'm also a loud coach. I encourage but not afraid to make interventions, but again that just leads on to me talking about changing my approach when I've got players taller than me, played a higher level of football than me, sweating, full of adrenaline, telling me to go forth and multiply. From a social perspective, one non-negotiable for me is communication. Don't care who you are, don't talk, don't play. And honesty. I'm quite an honest person, so I like to make sure that my players are accountable for their performance, their preparation, how they deliver, and I'll work hard in the background trying to do my bit to give them the right structure and platform to play their football. So I talked about coaching with the boys on SurveyMonkey. So again, all of this is anonymous, so it should open up some good debate, and I was quite happy to be told. So the question was, how good is training effectively? Poor, bit boring. I can see what we're trying to do is good, it's really good. And the majority of the guys thought it was good training and was relevant to our style of play. So not perfect, loads to work on, but I wouldn't have it anyway. Any other way I see this is a bit of a journey. When I started, I thought I'd come in, I'd do a few days, write a few sessions, tick a few things off, but I see it's much, much bigger than that. It's I can't remember the word, but it's much more important than that, and I don't even know if it ever ends, to be honest, because I'm constantly learning. So the boys, the majority of them said it was good. So they liked the fact it had an aim and it was relevant. They planned and flowed. They linked, and put that in twice. There's detail with targets for the next match implemented. I guess one of the challenges for me, which I see today, which I see through Jason, is individual challenges. I'm not the best at that, and that's something that I'll take away. So how can we improve our coaching? So similar stuff to everybody, apart from this guy. But yeah, oh, there was a funny one. How good was training? Wouldn't know, as haven't trained all year. Brilliant. Start earlier and be more anonymous. So I can't even smack him on. More people turn up from the 11. That's really relevant. It's a similar sort of stuff that you guys experience as well. And high tempo and exercises, which was interesting for me, but a good one because they've got to come back for pre-season. So our future players. So again, every player was profiled. I've particularly pulled out the two full-backs. I worked on it with Callum, and then I had to sit down and discuss with the players, which was fun. But the two full-backs we worked through was their ability to pass. So, well, not pass per se, but they're longer passing, they're different types of techniques, so clip, curl, different feet, stuff like that, getting beyond diagonals. And the reason I pulled that one out is because we didn't play out from the back very often, but when we did, we were encouraged to go a bit longer. So this was a good example of where I tried to actually develop the future player. So one of the sessions that I designed was about him playing forward. 2 and 3 were obviously primary. We cut the pitch off, we changed it over, cones were ready to go. Cut the pitch off, worked on 2, 8, 9 and 11 were my secondary players, and it also supported our style of play in terms of playing forward quickly and helping their individual development areas. Beautifully written, as you can see, but also number of pitches. So top one that you can see was basically playing through midfield, which we were more about this second one, which was receiving it and then dropping it in for a 9 coming across to receive. So all our sessions were largely designed to support game plans. Main objective was to utilise a half pitch in all the players. So a big obstacle was around, well, not only time, 1 hour exactly, and kicking people off and running off at 9 because people are trying to come on. But a big obstacle was actually about breaking that down this was one of probably the only times really where I was able to actually cut a bit of pitch off and work individually. Generally it was about phases and transitions and games. So one of my sessions that I was really proud of was actually Martin came and see me that night really, but and I had a bit of a nightmare. 4 keepers, don't know why, but 4 keepers to try and integrate, and we just lost 5-3 to Hamble on a Tuesday, and this was the Thursday, and I actually had some other work that I wanted to do with our midfield, but Callum thought it was key that we had a look at Saturday's game because we didn't want to go back up to Hamble, which was who we were playing on Saturday, and let in another 5 because we couldn't defend the header. So I had to work through back four positioning, defending crosses, which Hamble were really good at. So I cut the box into 4 and just worked on shape and positioning as the ball came in and was passed across. This is the one where I talked about debates and stuff like that. So you sort of go in there and you give some guidance what's going on, and they ain't listening, they're just rowing with each other, and the keeper down and go at 5 and 6 and down and go at the keeper and all sorts of stuff like that. So it was an interesting challenge working with those boys. One of the lessons I learned from it was it was a bit predictable. The manager was happy with that, but I totally took that on board, and I think it's important to try and just disrupt that balance a bit, otherwise they're just set up on the edge of the box defending the free kick. But we think overall it was a success because we went up there on Saturday and not only did we keep a clean sheet, but we won 3-0. I honestly think that was one of the most satisfying things that I'd done, that from the Thursday night or the Wednesday night where I put the session together, the Thursday night where I come in, adapted it and delivered it, the Friday, and then the Saturday where we actually executed it was very satisfying. So I think Wessex League is really hard for coaches. There's so many games, there's so little time to be able to actually work on some of this stuff, but I never saw that as an excuse. I'm really lucky to have that facility out there, so you can never really, you can never use that as an excuse. Anytime you train, you're out there, you're training literally every week of the year. Before I was the manager always wanted to use the half pitch in all the players, so the focus on my sessions were around opponents and the sessions designed to support game plans. It was excellent for phases, but it was hard to deliver specific positions. It was, I don't think I would still be at Hamworthy if I wasn't on the UEFA B, to be honest. So whilst it was like a real massive challenge for me to do all 3 of it, all 3 things after such a long time out of football, I learned so much on this. Apart from how to spell, I worked so much on this, but like I say, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Transitioning to a manager was ridiculous. When you consider it's a hobby and you're doing your UEFA B at the same time, I felt at times I was working full time and I should have been paid full time for it. Players reacted well to the style of change. A lot of that went through the game plans, but there were sessions where I was able to drop in detail. Biggest achievement was the session I just talked about. Biggest challenge was the sheer volume of change, going from basically number 3 to number 2, then to number 1. Number 1 was just insane. But it has been a huge help for this season. So moving forward, I've already worked through my philosophy, well, my values, basically for the club, for us, and for our players. They all link in. Then the type of player that we're going to want, so we're going to go from our goalie, from defence through midfield into forward. So for example, I want defenders that are comfortable on the ball, playing around and through, able to play long or accurate, defenders, technically good defenders, obviously, effective communicators, and good one-on-one defensive situations, so we can start to pick the profile of the player that we want. How I want our players to be, how we'll coach them. Some of the team messages, so thinking back about, I could be quite, well, obviously ramble on, so I try to rationalise a lot of the stuff that we want, and then we'll actually have this all laminated, and wherever we go, we'll set up our away changing room so it feels like a home away from home. Game days all organised from when they arrive to when they go out, what they do, when they come in, how they kick off, and that is it. Thanks for listening.
Questions?
A bit rusted, yeah.
Yeah, that ended. Well, I thought I was running out of time. To be fair, but
I mean, you said you had big characters playing for you.
yeah.
Did any of their sort of information or discussions that you had, did that influence your philosophy at all throughout the year? Did
No.
it change it, or was it just...
Yeah, my philosophy will always be my philosophy, but what it did do is it taught me a lot more technical detail. So these boys are still playing at that level, could probably play at a higher level that I've played at. So I found that all my old teams, like Swanage and the DPL, I've played a higher level than that. Burwood, I feel like I've played a higher level than that, but I played in that league. So it was always about, this is what I want, and players would be like, oh, he knows what he's on, no, yeah, we'll do that. But out there you go, this is what we want, and they go, well, what about that? Or what happens when I go in there? Or what? And you're like, okay, yeah. And so you just adapt your style, and once I learn, you know, that they also know what they're talking about. I don't have to be so dictatorial or autocratic. It made me a better coach.
How did the players find going from having you as the assistant coach or lead coach to manager? Did they take that well? Or?
It was madness, so I tried to use comedy as a way to sort of integrate myself with them, because quite honestly, all they'd seen for the last 8 months is Mr. Michelin with like 19 bags, filling up water bottles, just doing everything for Callum to give him the platform to go and manage the side, because it was only me and him. I went from that to almost like suit and tie to game plan, in possession pictures, and it was a completely different style of play. So I didn't go in there like, you will now, you know, Callum was rubbish, the style of football was rubbish. It was, we've gone for a load of change, let's stick together. This is what I'd like to do. I know there's a lot of words. Do you have any questions? And we got into a habit of, we made a joke of, do you have any questions? Because guess how many questions I ever used to get? 0. A bit like this.
Did you have like a classroom environment then? Is that how
in
you
the
did
change room, to be fair, we also give them free pizza after a Thursday night. So I would very rarely, but I would go in there and just talk about the style, and I'd get it on the big screen and stuff like that. But I did that a couple of times.
Cool.
I think it was easy because we played a really direct brand of football, which was nice, and it gave us a lot of good results. We had a lot of strength, a lot of power, but we also had a lot of footballers who were just kicking it. So actually, when I explained to them that, you know, don't worry about mistakes, play confidently, they really took it on board. And in the end, because the last 2 weeks was a bit rubbish, results look less positive than what they were, but performances in some of the football, particularly out there, was unbelievable. Unbelievable. So quite confident going into next year that with a pre-season that I can really sort of ram home that style. In a guided Q&A way.
Can I ask, because obviously if you're making a change to the way they play, having come through, only worked with youth football up until this year, you're always trying to develop the players, whereas obviously you're dealing with